How does a 400-ton airplane stay in the air? Here's something that might keep you up at night. Scientists still debate exactly how a wing creates lift. There's no single, universally agreed-upon explanation for the force that keeps massive aircraft suspended in thin air. And yet, in 2024 alone, over 40 million commercial flights took off and landed safely. So how does aerodynamics work, and why doesn't a plane just fall out of the sky? To answer that, we need to go back to 1799, when an English engineer named George Cayley accomplished something no one had done before. He officially identified the four forces of flight: lift, weight, thrust, and drag. These four forces wage a constant tug of war every single second an aircraft stays airborne. Lift pushes up, weight pulls down, thrust drives the plane forward, drag fights to slow it down. When these forces balance perfectly, the airplane flies steady and level. It's elegant in its simplicity, yet staggeringly complex in its execution. The force most people want to understand is lift, because lift feels almost impossible. A Boeing 747 can weigh up to 975,000 pounds at takeoff. That makes it the heaviest commercially manufactured aircraft in the United States. And yet its wings, spanning about 5,500 square feet of surface area, can generate up to 850,000 pounds of upward force. That's almost 1 million pounds of air pushing a machine into the sky. So where does lift actually come from? This is where things get fascinating and a little controversial. The most common explanation you'll hear involves a man named Daniel Bernoulli. In 1738, this Swiss mathematician published a book called Hydrodynamica, where he described a principle that would later bear his name. Put simply, Bernoulli's principle states that as the speed of a fluid increases, its pressure decreases. Applied to a wing's airfoil shape, the idea is that air flows faster over the curved upper surface, creating lower pressure on top and higher pressure below. That pressure difference pushes the wing up. Then there's the Newton camp. Sir Isaac Newton's third law tells us that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. A wing angles itself to deflect air downward, push air down, and the air pushes you up. It's intuitive and powerful as an explanation. Here's the thing. Neither explanation, on its own, tells the complete story. Leading Boeing aerodynamicist Doug McLean, in his book Understanding Aerodynamics, explains that the wing affects the pressure over a wide area in what he calls a pressure field. A diffuse cloud of low pressure forms above the wing, and high pressure usually forms below. Where these clouds touch the wing surface, they create the pressure difference that generates lift. It's real, it's measurable. But capturing all of it in one tidy equation has proven surprisingly elusive. There's a popular myth that needs addressing. You may have heard the equal transit time theory, which claims that air split at the front of a wing must reunite at the back at the same moment, forcing the air on top to travel faster over the longer curved surface. It sounds logical. It's taught in some textbooks. And it's completely wrong. There's no physical law requiring air molecules to meet back up. In fact, experiments confirm that air crossing the top of a lifting wing arrives at the trailing edge before the air traveling underneath. The myth persists, but the physics doesn't support it. Want proof that the simple explanations fall short? Airplanes can fly upside down. If lift were purely about wing shape, an inverted plane should plummet. But it doesn't. An inverted aircraft simply requires a higher angle of attack, meaning the pilot tilts the nose up relative to the oncoming air. This demonstrates that angle of attack, not just wing curvature, drives lift production. Which brings us to one of the most critical concepts in aviation: the angle of attack. This is the angle between the wing and the oncoming airflow. Increase it, and you generate more lift, up to a point. That point typically sits around 14 to 17 degrees. Go beyond it, and the airflow over the top of the wing separates. Lift drops dramatically. This is called a stall. A stall is one of the most misunderstood things in aviation. It doesn't mean the engine has stopped. It doesn't mean the plane falls out of the sky like a rock. The airplane still produces some lift during a stall. It just becomes very inefficient. And here's the beautiful part of aircraft design. Planes are built to recover from stalls naturally. The center of gravity sits forward of the center of lift. So when a stall occurs, the nose drops on its own, airspeed increases, the angle of attack decreases, and the wings start generating enough lift again. It's a self-correcting system, engineered into the very bones of the aircraft. Modern planes take this even further. Every transport aircraft today must have a stall protection system. These systems continuously measure the angle of attack and warn pilots well before a stall ever develops. Stall protection is just one layer of redundancy. The Boeing 747 was designed with redundant hydraulic systems, quadruple main landing gear, and dual control surfaces. Most commercial aircraft have at least 2 engines and can fly, even land safely, on just one. Flight control systems are powered by multiple hydraulic units. If one fails, others pick up the slack. The engineering philosophy is simple. Assume things will break and build backups for the backups. The result of all this engineering? Flying is extraordinarily safe. The risk of dying on a commercial flight is approximately 1 in 11 million. Compare that to driving, where the odds are 1 in 5,000. You're roughly 2,000 times more likely to die in a car than in a plane. According to an MIT study, the chance of dying during an air journey drops by about 7% every single year and continues to halve every decade. In the words of MIT professor Arnold Barnett, you might think there's some irreducible risk level we can't get below, and yet it keeps dropping. Even lightning isn't a real threat. Commercial airplanes get struck by lightning an average of twice a year. Modern aircraft, including those with carbon fiber composite exteriors like the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, have been tested and shown to receive no damage from strikes. All of this, every safety system, every aerodynamic principle, traces back to 2 bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio. On December 17, 1903, Wilbur and Orville Wright achieved the first controlled, sustained, engine-powered flight at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. That first flight lasted 12 seconds and covered 120 feet. By their 4th flight that same day, Wilbur covered 852 feet in 59 seconds. They had built their own wind tunnel to test wing shapes. They conceived of their propellers as rotating wings, generating horizontal lift. With their mechanic Charles Taylor, they built a 12-horsepower gasoline engine from scratch. The legacy of that 12-second flight? A small piece of fabric from the original Wright Flyer was attached to NASA's Ingenuity helicopter. On April 19, 2021, that helicopter lifted off the surface of Mars, achieving the first powered flight on another world, from Kitty Hawk to Mars in 118 years. So how does an airplane fly? Through a combination of forces that scientists are still refining their understanding of. Through engineering redundancy that assumes failure and plans for it. Through over a century of accumulated knowledge, starting with 2 brothers and a wind tunnel. The next time you're 35,000 feet in the air and you feel a bump of turbulence, remember this. The physics holding you up there are the same physics that carried a piece of muslin fabric across the Martian sky. And they haven't let us down yet.